This segment of Packard Pokes At was made possible by patrons of the show and viewers like you. Please go to patreon.com/PackardPokesAt to help support the show. Thank you. Todd Bentley is apparently some preacher that's out there, and he seems to think that he can raise people from the dead. At least that's his claim anyway. He's claimed he's brought 35 people back from the dead. I'm like, I've been dead tired, but I've never been dead. So, but he has apparently restoring his reputation after his divorce from his wife back in 2008. And unfortunately, the two men were preaching together at Jones Harvest Fest back in 2015. Unfortunately, this footage was only available from those who had a subscription, so they've been unable to watch all of it, except for a few shorts. And we do have one of those videos here right now.
I wish we had a dead body we could pray for, but we don't. That would have been a great illustration. But I don't think anybody wants to sign up for that. But if we had one, this would be great. I'd have them at the altar under the sheet. We'd just be preaching. I've done that, by the way. In Africa, I have a tent so they can bring the dead, put them in the tent while I'm preaching so they don't stink in the sun. Yeah, that's a true literal story, by the way. I actually have a Raising the Dead tent that I've used for 10 years in Africa. I also use it for the demon-possessed because I figured the dead and the demon-possessed could be in the same tent. I actually put a sign on my tent called Dead Raising Tent. And people go, why do you have a tent called Dead Raising? I go, well, if I'm preaching in a city and anybody dies, I ask them to bring them to the meeting. We put them in the tent and we pray over them. And if nothing happens, we bury them. I said, give me 2 days. I mean, so if they're fresh, the closer they are to freshly dead, the easier they are to resurrect. The more days that get in there, once you get past the 4-day mark, it's somebody sent me a ridiculous prayer request. They're like, well, you know, they've been dead for 2 years. Can we still go for it? And I said, I think this is a joke. But biblically, you know, Lazarus was 4 days or whatever. So we could probably hit that max. But all joking aside, we really do pray for the dead to be raised. Literally. So whenever we have opportunity, we at least go for it. If nothing happens, we bury them. So we do take prayer requests. When people die, they call us or they email us, and we pray. And then if nothing happens, we bury them. But we've prayed for probably 1,000 resurrections, literally. And we've had 35 resurrections of the dead, testimonies of people raised from the dead. Some of them I've seen right before my eyes. So pretty amazing stuff.
You know, what's interesting there is he goes, well, we get these prayer requests that are pretty ridiculous. Wait a minute. I thought your God could do anything. If your God can do anything, it's not ridiculous to ask for that kind of request, is it? If you notice there, he says, well, we have to get it within the first 4 days, you know, which is basically he's saying 3 days. He's basically using the whole 3-day thing there to promote the idea of Jesus coming back from the dead after 3 days. He's rolling it.
Saying 4 days because of Lazarus.
Right.
Lazarus.
Right. He was saying 4 days because of Lazarus, but I mean, within that 4 days, you know, the first 3 days, and the fresher they are, the easier it is. I'm like, what is this? A glad bag? You know,
dude, it's zombie logic.
Zombie logic, yes. and the thing is also, they always say, oh, it's always over in Africa when this shit happens. We have this special tent where you just bring your dead. Or someone who's close to dying or whatever, we'll just pray on them, and we'll just preach over them. And then, if you notice there, he's like, oh, and a few of them actually happened right in front of me. It's like, wait a minute, I thought you did all these. Wouldn't they all happen right in front of you then? I mean, if I was the one supposedly bringing someone back from the dead, I would fucking notice that. I mean, I would be witnessing it firsthand. But since there is no video camera, no recordings of any kind, and just his word, I mean, you might as well throw your word in a bucket and throw the bucket in the river because it ain't worth shit. Connie, your thoughts?
The only video I saw was supposedly a Bentley in Pakistan, and there's some poor soul that they've dragged out, laid on the ground, and they're all pounding on his guy's chest and
Yeah.
screaming and yelling and praying. And, I don't think he's dead. I just think that he's unconscious. There's no corroboration. There's nobody who has proof. There's no video proof, no
Right.
other medical proof that anybody died and was resurrected. And as a matter of fact, I've seen other claims that his so-called healing, resulted in people still dying of the diseases that they had. It's, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Seriously, the dude's got 35. He says he's resurrected 35 people. He's got one shady video that's questionable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Out of 35 people. Seriously.
Doc and Jog from the general said most men raise the dead with a tent when they wake up in the morning. That's a whole different tent there, Dawkins.
Well, one could argue too that since the 80s, since VHS cameras, there should be recordings of this.
Yeah. But they always seem to like, oh, we're going to perform these miracles. Recordings? No, we can't do the recording. But, even in this day and age, I don't think I would...
I wouldn't trust a recording.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I wouldn't trust the recording in this day and age. Because first video cameras and things came out, all those miracles that they were talking about went down to fucking zero. Then we get special effects, then all of them start jumping up again. So, just say it. The only way I would trust a recording if it was a third-party documentary that had nothing to do with them and the video was unaltered in any way.
Well, yeah, and it can't just be a single situation. I mean, you'd have to talk about hundreds in order for it to be statistically significant.
Yeah.
I mean, I see all these studies nowadays that are done on 30 participants, and those studies are jokes. They got 15 as real participants and another 15 as a control group.
Mm-hmm.
There's just not enough numbers to get real statistics.
Right. Yeah. And I remember seeing that comment on when I was looking at the video on this, and it says, instead of out being at the hospital helping people, he's out shilling for money, which is exactly what he was doing. That's
exactly what you do, Packard.
Me? Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm a big shill. I'm a big shill for Enron.
Dude, did you forget to drop the chemtrails while you were flying?
Yeah, I forgot to drop the chemtrails.
All right, well, you better get on that, man.
I'll make sure that the pilot hits the chemtrail button on their way through. Doc and Doc from the chat room said if they're doing that in Africa, they don't exactly have great medical facilities. What chances these successes weren't actually dead? Now, that's a very good possibility because they don't have, proper medical staff. There's like, they say, oh, they'll reach for a pulse on the arm or something, and that's like, well, that may not always be good. You have to check the carotid artery on the neck because if it's from anywhere else, you can't fully trust it.
I think the other diabolical thing that he mentioned in passing, because we're focusing on his so-called healings, is that he has the other people he puts in that tent are the demon possessed, and you're talking about third world countries where demons and witches and all of this stuff. This is really horrible stuff that's happening, and people believing that these things are real, and it's disgusting. But that level of fear and lack of education or proper, he's the worst kind of evangelist.
Yeah,
he really is. Pathological liar, and been doing it since he was 17, 18 years old. That's when he started his career. I'd never heard of him before this week, but he's been around for a while, and he's violent and dangerous, and wow, worst kind of preacher.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, did you have any additional thoughts on that?
No, Connie gave him bitch slapping. I liked it.
We need the bitch slap sound effect there. I think that would be fun.
I'll have to get the yeah.
Something like that.
Bitch slap for Bentley.
That's right.